let's move to 3 teams that really impressed me after this week 1. I'm going to list them off and we'll go through them one by one. Oklahoma to start here, USC, BYU. Let's start with Oklahoma, though. The Sooners looked balanced on offense and defense for the first time in half a decade. It is the first time that I watched an Oklahoma football team and said, no, the offense is as good as the defense. And the offense put up 45, okay? That's a great sign for Brent Venables in what is his era of football. Shouts again to him, who got the game ball for the win and was emotional about it, was speechless for it. And as he didn't have things to say or things he could say because he was being so overwhelmed, I got to see and hear players say, I'd run through a brick wall for you. You also got to see what it was like for Dylan Gabriel to be the guy. I don't know if that's a first-team All-American quarterback, but it's certainly a first-team All-Big 12 quarterback who's capable of making plays with his feet and with his arm. You get to see Eric Gray here. Look at that. Pulled it out of Eric Gray's stomach and then made a man miss to get into the end zone. I like seeing that. That's the kind of quarterback that I like to see out there playing for Oklahoma, a guy that can beat you with his legs and with his arms. And my goodness, did Oklahoma find a diamond in the rough in their own backyard? Just a little bit here. We're going to talk about Heritage Hall's own Gavin Freeman, a walk-on Wes Welker type who showed up after having committed to Texas Tech, decommitted from Texas Tech, got the new regime change and said, I'd like to walk on at Oklahoma. My dad played here, played a little tight end. And they said, sure. And he turns out to be a player for them in week 1. Shout out to him. If Wes Welker also sounds a little bit familiar, it's because he also went to Heritage Hall before walking on at Texas Tech to have what I think is a Hall of Fame career, according to me. But I expect that with Brent Venables, you're going to find more of that, right? That's the overarching point here, is Brent Venables had made a living at Clemson finding guys out in the woods and then developing them into destroyer of worlds. Isaiah Simmons came from a small high school in Kansas where his best offer was to Kansas. And then Brent Venables went up there, saw that he had a 6'4", 225-pound monster, hugged him around his waist, took him back to Clemson, and developed him into what is becoming the model for the cheetah position at Oklahoma. Back in my day, we just called it nickel, right? But it is a position where you're supposed to be able to play a little bit of linebacker, a little bit of safety, a little bit of edge, right? Justin Harrington, a former safety, and Deshaun White, a former linebacker, play that position to tell you what kind of versatility they want to have there at Oklahoma. Impressed by them. Want to see if Oklahoma can keep that up against Kent State and then eventually at Nebraska and Lincoln. Feels like right now, OU should be off to a 3-0 start by the time we get to conference play. Next team that impressed me on this list, got to go with USC and Lincoln Riley, okay? But it's not really about USC and Lincoln Riley. It's about USC and Alex Grinch. Now, I'm a degenerate, so I go and find the Pac-12 playing USC and Rice because I'm interested. I want to know. I also have friends that brave the 100-degree temperatures in Los Angeles to go see the start of the Lincoln Riley era. I'm going to give them a little bit of credit here because they're not used to that kind of heat out there because, well, ocean breezes and stuff, but just going to say that it's 84,000 full at Oklahoma for UTEP and 96-degree heat and humidity. That said, Shane Lee, among 3, had pick 6s in this game against Rice. Now, all of these were tip passes, right, from wide receivers, so they're flukes, but Johnny on the spot is Johnny on the spot, and then taking it back the whole way, that's nothing to sneeze at, man. And for Alex Grinch, who is a tackles for loss and takeaways freak, that is what you want. You want opportunistic players. You want players that are going to make big plays that swing the game. Grinch is a guy that once commissioned a math professor at Ohio State to find out how many takeaways it takes to get to 9 wins. Found the number was 22. Get 22 takeaways, probably going to win 9 games, regardless of how good your offense is. The thought being that if you marry Alex Grinch's takeaway philosophy with Lincoln Riley's ability to move the football into the end zone, you should have a dynamic offense and defense. And it looks like that's what they got at USC, where you got 18 points of your 66 coming from the defense. That's a great way to start the 2022 season. And all of a sudden, feels like USC is the class of the Pac-12, with Oregon and Utah getting beat down by SEC East opponents. And USC slowly off to a 1-0 start, already to a quarter of their win total in 2021. Let's see how they progress. By the time USC gets an opportunity to play Notre Dame, I hope that that is a big game that has some college football playoff implications inside of it. Okay, last team that really impressed me this weekend, Brigham Young University. That's right, BYU. They went down to Tampa to play the South Florida Bulls, where they were an 11.5-point favorite, and they won 50-21. This is who BYU has become over the last 3 years. A team that you are getting ready to bank on winning 10 games a year, playing an independent schedule. If I called them Notre Dame light, they might take some offense to that, but that's how it feels. You're barnstorming around, you're taking on all comers, and you are absolutely throwing down. And they threw down a gauntlet going into this week where they get number 10 Baylor. We'll see what the rankings say on Tuesday for the AP, headed to their house in Provo. That's with Jeff Grimes, a former coordinator at BYU, returning, and Dave Aranda and Ron Roberts bringing the whole defense that put up a total as a program, 69 points on FCS Albany on Saturday night. I'm very excited to see what BYU looks like and what Baylor looks like in a game that I think is going to be low-key as good as Arkansas-Cincinnati was on Saturday. Keep your eyes on BYU. I think they're going to make some noise in 2022. All right. From the teams that impressed me to 3 teams that kind of disappointed me. All right. We got some room for improvement here. It's not that they're out of any contentious week 1 for people, for crying out loud. Now, I got Iowa, Utah, and Oklahoma State I want to go through here. The Hawkeyes won their way. Since Hayden Fry became the head coach at Iowa, Iowa has never once had an identity crisis. They know exactly who they are and what they plan to do. Now, a lot of that is because Kirk Ferentz has been the head coach since the 20th century, quite literally. But they want to run the ball and they want to play outstanding defense. They did that against the number 3 ranked team in the FCS, that is the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. The problem that many people have with it, especially with them still being in my top 25, is that they didn't score a touchdown. I don't see that as a bad thing. I'm on my roll safe knowledge here. It don't matter that your offense can't score TDs if their defense can't score TDs, or their offense can't score TDs. You know what I'm saying? You could play outstanding defense and have a mediocre offense and win championships. See the 2000 Baltimore Ravens. If that's who Iowa's going to be in 2022, sign me up, because I'm here for good football. You can play good football by scoring a bunch of points. You can play good football by stopping people. But the one thing I know to be true is you will not win any championship without a defense. They already have that, with Jack Campbell leading that charge. If Spencer Petras figures it out, finds a couple other receivers to go along with Bruce and Sam Laporta, I think that they're going to be just fine. However, I'm a little disappointed that they did not win by 20-3, right? I don't think anybody be mad about that, knowing that South Dakota State is a good football team. You got to be able to score touchdowns at some point during the season. You don't have to be able to bank on it, but if your defense is still the defense that you had in 2021, and it seems to be so stifling, they're going to be okay. Just a little bit disappointed. I wanted them to be a bit better. I'm still excited to see what Iowa looks like against Michigan, that game at Kinnick Stadium on October 1st. All right. The Utes missed an opportunity to put the Pac-12 firmly in the college football playoff, if you ask me, by getting what I thought could have been a resounding win against a program that we all think the world of in Florida, what they've been able to do over the past 20 years. They squandered opportunities in the red zone. They squandered opportunities to really take control of this game, and they could not stop the run, knowing that Anthony Richardson was going to do just that, and Trevor Etienne was going to help him out. For Utah, you have to deal with the reputational damage to your league, where you were the team that most of us picked to be the one to most likely represent the Pac-12 in the college football playoff, and you're the defending Pac-12 champion. So if you're really wanting to be mean about it, you can say a program with a first-year head coach who just fired the last head coach went and beat up on the best team in the Pac-12 in 2021 in a game that they probably shouldn't have been in. It's just not a good look if you are the Utah Utes, and it got so much worse. We'll talk about that here in just a little bit, but as producer Tyler had said before the show kicked off, Utah feels down bad. They come back, but right now they feel down bad. All right. From this team, let's go to the Oklahoma State Cowboys. I think it's really about the defense for them. We know that Spencer Sanders has full control of the offense. Mike Gundy said at Big 12 Media Days that he thought that Spencer Sanders was a magician in their offense. I asked him to expand on that. Most of what he said whittles to this. I'm paraphrasing. He's got the experience and the understanding to get us in and out of bad plays and to make things happen with his legs when the play just doesn't go according to plan. And I saw a bunch of that in their game against Central Michigan, where he had over 400 total yards and put up a bunch of touchdowns. The score was 44-7, I believe, or 44-10 at the half. I know that Oklahoma State thought the game was over, but it wasn't, because Daniel Richardson of Central Michigan decided that in the second half, no, we're going to be about this task. And I have questions about Oklahoma State's defense now. Now, Mason Cobb is not Malcolm Rodriguez, but he could be pretty doggone good as a linebacker. He had 11 tackles, 2.5 for loss. I also think that they're going to get more out of Tyler Tracy, who had 2.5 tackles for loss, but also did a great job of just beating the man in front of him. Derek Mason has some fixes to make on his defense, most of which I think come down to tackling. You can put people on the ground, it's all going to be okay. And you'll be back to the Big 12 championship game if you get that fixed. But right now, you're giving me a little bit of a scare by getting, 44 total points put on your head by Central Michigan, who should not be anywhere near the class competition of the number 12 ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys. But I'd be the first person to tell you that a win is a win, and they're going to walk out with that. Thank you for watching the #1 college football show. Please remember to subscribe to the channel and like this video so that you don't miss any of the best college football coverage in America.